Hello, everyone. My name is Kwan Yao Lim, and I am the Assistant Director of Admissions working at Berklee College of Music. So I manage student recruitment, um, yeah, and anything that's related to the admissions office. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us at admissions@berkeley.edu. Thank you.
My name is Yukarima. I'm a jazz pianist. I'm assistant and chair of the Jazz and American Music Department at Stanzo College of Music. We are looking forward to seeing Berklee staff coming to our school to conduct a clinic and also an audition. I'll be in the audition for 2 days with you guys. So if there's anything you need, let me know. Okay? And looking forward to seeing you, of course.
Now I would officially like to pass this over to Claire.
Cool. Thanks so much for here, everyone. How's it going? I'm Claire. I teach at Berklee in the Electronic Production and Design department, like Bree mentioned. And one of my specialties is in one of Berklee's programs called the Electronic Digital Instrument Program, where students can use electronic instruments as their main instrument at Berklee.
エレクトロニック、プロダクションとデザインというコースを教えていて、スペシャリティは何かというと、そのエレクトリックのメディアをどうやって音楽を作るのに使っていくかということがスペシャリティです。
Cool, thanks. And yeah, like Bree mentioned, today my topic was kind of centered around songwriting and production. But for me, that also includes a lot of performing and just music technology overall.
今日はもちろんソングライティングのことについて話すんですけれども、それ自分にとってはそのソングライティングっていうのはただ音楽を書くだけではなくて、そのエレクトロニックなものも使うことを中心としています。
Yeah, so just a little bit about me. Hi, that's me. That's where you can find me on socials as well. I have an artist project that's called dolltr. So that's my artist name. And then I also do a lot of teaching. And you can find my work under the small prof. So that's my handles.
これが彼女のなんていうんですかね、プロフィールです。
Yeah. So I just wanted to, before we start today's session with me talking about like creative technology, I just wanted to show a small video of what I do as a little bit of my music. And yeah, we can watch this video.
Your wasted dreams away.
Cool. So that's like a little bit of the music that I do. I'll just let that kind of play in the background. But overall, I use a lot of controllers, and then I also use a software called Ableton Live to make music in real time. And sometimes I also do some things with my voice where I sing, but I also do some not quite beatboxing, but what's happening at the beginning in this performance, for example, is I'm doing boom, boom. I'm saying that, but it's translating that into the electronic sounds.
あの、大体使っているのはいっぱいコントローラーとエイブルトンなんですけれども、それでいろんなことをやってるんですけども、例えば一番最初にやっていた、マイクで、歌が入ってない部分っていうのは、パッパッとかサウンドを出して、それが、この電気信号となって、それで、エレクトロニックなサウンドに変換しています。
Cool. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do overall. And I think for me, thanks so much. Yay, in the chat. I see some people saying things. Thank you. For me, I think of myself as and I think this is the same for a lot of other people doing creative stuff. We do so many things, right? We wear a lot of hats. So for me, I think of myself as like all of these different things. And I think that in nowadays, especially in today's music industry, it really helps to try to have a lot of experience in different parts of music technology if you use electronic tools.
今まで、昔の、ミュージシャンっていうのはもしかしたら演奏家だと演奏家だけかもしれないし、コンポーザーはコンポーザーだけかもしれませんけれども、彼女は今上から書いてあるミュージシャン、コンポーザー、ソングライティングだとプロデューサー、ステュディオエンジニアとかアーティスト、これを全部自分はこれをだと思っているんですね。今のテクノロジーの中でミュージシャンっていうのは昔と違ってこの全てになり得ることができると思います。
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about each of these things individually, but also just overall how these things are related to music technology. So maybe let's start off by talking a little bit about like what exactly is music technology?
今のことを一つ一つ話していきたいと思うんですけれども、まず最初にはこのミュージックテクノロジーってどういうものかっていうのをミュージシャンにとって話したいと思います。
Yeah, so music technology, this is something that I got from the dictionary, but what it tells us, at least, is that music technology is the use of some kind of thing, some kind of tool, like, it could be your phone, or it could be a controller like this, or it could be something else to make something that's musical. So it could be songwriting, it could be production, it could also be producing maybe like a show, could be many, many different kinds of things.
これは辞書から持ってきたものなんですけれども、この、ミュージックテクノロジーっていうのは、下手すると、iPhone のような電話かもしれないし、コントローラーかもしれないし、何かそういうテクノロジーで、音楽を作るものっていうことなんですね。
Yeah, so and I think this is really good because it means that for us as creative people, or even for me when I'm being creative, there are so many things that you can do, right? So on this slide, here's like just a few of these things that I tried to kind of put into different categories.
じゃあこのテクノロジーを使ってどんなことができるかっていうふうに考えたときに、ものすごくいろんなことができると思うんですね。今ちょっとパッと浮かんだだけでもこれだけのことがあります。ソングライティングだけじゃなくて、実際のライブパフォーマンスでのエレクトリックミュージックの使い方だとか、またはアンサンブル、または今度プログラム、コーディング、コードを書くこと、こういうことも、今ここにあるすべてのことができると思います。
Yeah, so we'll just talk about a few of these today, and I wanted to kind of highlight a few of them that are super connected to me and what I think is, really crucial in today's industry. So I wanted to start off with writing and production, which is the main theme for today.
このいろんなことができるんですけれども、この中で自分にとって一番大切だなと思うことを話していきたいんですけれども、もちろん一番最初に来るのはミュージックライティングとプロダクションです。
Cool. And the way that I see this kind of tying into a lot of the work that I do myself, or even in how I teach my students, is that music is about creation, right? So it's like we're thinking about how can we use creative music technology tools to make music. Sometimes that's just through writing songs, but even more, it's through taking the song and then putting it into maybe a software program and to produce a full version of it.
もちろんそのテクノロジーを何に使うかというと、音楽をクリエイトすることに使っていくんですけれども、もちろんそれは普通にソングライティング、曲を書くこと、また作曲することにもなりますし、それは一つの曲を取ってそのソフトウェアに入れることで、全く違うプロダクションを作ることもできます。
Yeah, and for me, that's why I started my artist project, which is called dolltr. I've been doing this for many years now, but I remember that when I just first started being an artist, it was so important for me to be able to use music technology to express myself and express my ideas.
このドートリックっていうアーティストプロジェクトをやっているそうなんですけれども、やっぱり一番最初、もう何年もやってるそうなんですけれども、その一番中心となるコアとなっているのは、このエレクトロニックな、トゥールをどうやって使うかっていうことです。
Yeah, and for me, when I started doing electronic music, it was very different from what I did before because I started off as a classically trained piano and flute player, and I also did some musical theater, but I never really used any kinds of like computers to make any music.
最初は、クレアさんはクラシックのピアノをやっていたそうなんですけれども、あと少しシアター、劇場的なものもやっていたんですけれども、この、エレクトロニックミュージックに入り始めて、いろんなことがものすごい新しいことがたくさんあったということです。
Yeah, but it was through using electronic music or using electronic tools to create music that I became very free and really started enjoying the creative process. And that's what led me to also work with a lot of companies as an artist. For example, Ableton is a really big company that I work with.
そんなエレクトロニックミュージックを自分に取り入れることになって、今までよりももっともっといろんなことが自由になったと思うし、新しいクリエイティビティが生まれてきたと思うし、そしてその同時に、その大きな会社、例えば今使っているエイブルトンとかのアーティストとしても活躍できるようになりました。
Cool. So up next, this is a video that I did with Ableton last year, or maybe like 2021, maybe it's 2 years ago now. But it was a video on their YouTube channel about my creative process, which was very fun. And the good news is that the Ableton Japan team helped us with subtitles. so this is a clip that will have subtitles. Cool. So I think, yeah.
エイブルトンの関係で作ったビデオらしいですけれども、エイブルトンにサブタイトル、何ですか、これ。
Cool. Yeah. So here's an example. Let's check out this video. Hi, I'm dolltr, and one thing I like to do is use follow actions to generate new melodic ideas. Here, I've recorded a bunch of different vocal takes as multiple clips. I double-click a clip to open Clip View and select all of the clips. I enable follow actions and set follow action A to Other. I set the clips to unlinked and the time to 1 beat. Now, after every beat, Live will trigger a randomly selected clip on my vocal track. To make things more interesting, I duplicate certain clips and alter their pitch. If I switch on legato, the clip will play from its last stopped point and creates a more fluid sounding vocal chop. In the end, I resample the vocal track so that I can save the generated pattern of chops. I love this process because it creates an evolving loop of different melodies and introduces a random element to my vocal editing. Okay, cool. So that's a little bit of the the video, but that song that we heard me working on was actually the song that I performed right at the beginning that I showed you just now. So it's a really big part. Using music technology is a really big part of my artist project.
この今のプロセスっていうのは一番最初に今日かけたビデオの曲なんですけれども、これで、このミュージックテクノロジーっていうのがどういうふうに自分のクリエイティブなプロセスに貢献してくれてるか分かっていただけると思います。
Cool. So yeah, that's one aspect of I think creative technology that's really big for a lot of artists nowadays because we have so many digital tools at our fingertips, like at our that we can use. And then the next question kind of becomes how are we going to share that? So for me, that's where performance kind of comes in.
このようにいろんなエレクトロニックなツールを使って音楽を作ることができるんですけれども、じゃあそれを今度リスナーとどうやって共有していくかっていうと、やっぱりパフォーマンス実際に演奏するってことになってきますね。
So yeah, generally speaking, for electronic performance, I think there are so many ways that people can perform their music. Sometimes a lot of people will use, MIDI controllers, and we call that controllerism. But sometimes you also have people who are using like turntables and CDJs, and that would be DJing. And sometimes you also have other people doing maybe more creative stuff where they're trying to throw something in the air and then make sound with that, or they're trying to, record something in real time and sample that. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with live performance.
ライブパフォーマンスの中でできることいろいろとあるんですけれども、さっき見せてくれたみたいなコントローラーを使うことがもちろん一般的にいっぱいあることですけれども、今度は、ターンテーブルとか回して DJ、のあれを使いながら、サウンドをコントロールすることもできるし、あとオーギュメンテッドパフォーマンステクニックというのは何かっていうと、例えば、何か物をポンって投げたときにそれが、それトリガーして音が出るとか、そういう感じのパフォーマンスですね。
Cool. And that's kind of where my specialty at Berklee kind of comes in because I was doing a lot of electronic performance as an artist. And when Berklee launched their electronic digital instrument program, I was one of the faculty members who joined Berklee to teach.
このバークリーがこのコースを始めたときに、彼女が最初の、一人の先生になったわけなんですけれども、その、You started 2019? Is that right?
Yeah, so the program started in 2019. Yeah, that's right.
じゃあもう3年、4年前ですね、から今その、デジタルミュージックのコースを始めています。
Yeah, so in the program, like from fall 2019 onwards, students could audition for Berklee with EDI as their main instrument. Before you could only do it on non-electronic instruments like piano or guitar or vocals. But now we're letting students audition with 3 parts in their performance system. One is a computing device, so it could be a laptop. And then one is you also need to have software. So for a lot of people, it's Ableton Live. And you also need to have controllers. And a lot of people will have different things. So they'll have drum pads or they'll have MIDI keyboards. Some people will also sing. So there's a lot of variation for the controllers.
このコースがスタートしてから、バークリーのオーディションも昔は楽器だけだったんですけれども、今ではこの、デジタルインストゥルメントで、オーディションを受けることもできます。で、そこで必要なのはコンピューティングデバイスというのは、ラップトップとかそういうやつですね。普通のパソコンですね。そして、そこにソフトウェアを送る人は、エイブルトンライブを使うと思うんですけれども、あとコントローラーは、ドラムパッドでもいいし、ミディコントローラーの普通のキーボードでもいいし、それは、その人の個人のチョイスかな。
Cool. So up next, I wanted to show another video of one of my performances, but this one is quite special because it's a very common setup that a lot of people will have for their EDI instrument. So you have a combination of a few controllers that are quite popular.
これは、一番みんなが EDI をやるときに、一般的なセットアップなのかもしれませんけれども、そのビデオをお見せします。
Cool. Yeah, here we go. darkness grows and pulls you close when daylight seems too far. Where's the strength to find? It's hiding deep within my mind. There's a voice that's singing in my memory. The spirit's calling me. The angels watching me. Spread your wings and make the dream reality. Be what you're meant to be, meant to be. You are, you are, you are your destiny. Cool. So that's just a little bit of an example. This is a performance that I did for my dolltr project that had the system that a lot of people use. And I put it in the chat in case anyone wants to look at the controllers and components of the EDI system.
これは彼女のドートリックプロジェクトの、ためのパフォーマンスなんですけれども、この今の何を使っているか機材その他、チャットに書いてあるので、もし興味のある方は見てください。When you say this is common setup, you mean like comparing to the other one, you don't have a keyboard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
That's what you meant common?
Yeah, so for example, a lot of people, instead of just having like a MIDI keyboard or something that they have like this, they'll have Ableton Push, and Ableton Push will be like their main instrument that they use.
なるほど。You call it Ableton Push, that's what you're
Yeah,
having.
push. Yeah, that's right.
Ableton Push と言われるこのコントローラー、これが、よく使われるもので、もちろんキーボードも使われるんですけども、これがさっき彼女が言ってよく使われるセットアップっていうやつですね。Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Yuki. Great. So then, yeah, and one other part of technology. So we talked about writing, production, performance. One other part of music technology that a lot of people are involved in, including me and my students, is something that's called playback engineering and live experience design, which I'll talk about in a moment.
Well, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I know. This one's
Yeah, I'm a
tricky. It's
pianist.
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
a jazz pianist, so I have to
no,
ask
it's all good.
I'm asking you some questions because I don't
Yeah,
know.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Yuki.
これ、
Yeah.
今から語るそうなんですけど、プレイバックエンジニアリング、ライブエクスペリエンスデザイン、これ何なんでしょうこれを、I'm looking forward to your explanation now.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So this is actually a part, it's funny that you mentioned that, Yuki, because it's generally speaking, this is like a newer thing that a lot of people are doing. But what performance design is, or production design, is that people who are who use a lot of music technology like me end up working for other artists who want to do the same thing. So we end up being like their teachers or their designers that will get hired to do like a full show that they want to do. So that's a little bit of what it means to help someone design their show. It's a little bit like you're their music director, but you're actually helping with the whole show, like the whole flow. Like could be lights, could be the band, stuff like that.
ああ、なるほど。これは、新しいものみたいですけれども、例えばこれ、そのさっきのテクノロジーとかを使って、ライティングも含めて、音も含めて、いろんなことをやるんですけれども、自分のためだけではなくて、人に雇われて、で、そのショーの全体を、何ですかね、ミュージックディレクターみたいな感じですかね。テクノロジーの中でのミュージックディレクターみたいな感じですかね。そういうことをする仕事ということですね。
Yeah, so what I love to do is show actually an example of this. Okay, one second. Let me share my screen again. Okay, cool. So here is a clip from YouTube of one example of a show that I helped to do playback and design for at Berklee. So at Berklee, almost every semester, we hold a concert that's called singers showcase, and I helped to work on. I used to help to work on that show.
シンガーズショーケースっていうのはもうずっとバークリーにあるコンサートですけれども、もう何十年とあるのかな。このパフォーマンスを、全体をディレクトしてあげたものがこのビデオだそうです。
Yeah, so for this show, we did it, I think, also about 2 years ago, and it was a concert that had a lot of Tina Turner songs. And because of that, there's a lot of live instrumentalists. So there's all of these people playing together live on stage.
これは何年か前にやったものなんですけれども、いっぱいティナ・ターナーの曲をやったそうなんですね。なので、ここには実際の楽器の人もいっぱいいます。
So some things that we needed to do for playback design were create backing tracks for any parts that the live players cannot play. So if there's like extra synthesizers or extra like sound effects, then we would have to make that.
まず一番ここでやった大きなことはバックトラックを作ることなんですね。この楽器の人たちができないこと、またシンセサイザーのサウンドとかをバックトラック作りました。
And then, because the live players need to play in time with the backing tracks, we also need to create click tracks for them.
当然、このバックトラックと一緒に演奏するのは人間なので、今度はクリックトラックが必要になります。
Yeah, so the playback engineer or the performance designer is one of the people who's in charge of making all of that come together so that it works during the live show.
ここにはパフォーマンスエンジニアっていう人がいて、そこでこのライブのプレイヤーと、そして今度デジタルの部分と全部を総括していく人がいます。
Yeah, and pretty much any show nowadays that is very big, involves a lot of people, will have somebody who's doing playback. Sometimes we're not sure what to call the person because it's still kind of new. So sometimes they might also just be called the show programmer, or sometimes the music director will do everything. So they will also do the playback engineer. But officially, the name that we kind of give it is playback.
Playback, that's it?
Yeah, playback. It could be the playback tech or just like the playback person, just the person doing playback. So.
Okay. まあこれ新しいものなので、どういう名前をつけてるか、その時によって違うみたいなんですけども、プレイバックパーソンだとか、プレイバックエンジニアだとか、その全体のデジタルとそのライブのことを総括する人ですね。そんな感じで呼んでます。
Yeah, so that's a little bit about playback. It's still fairly new, but that's why I think it's so important for students to learn about it. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about also some of the things that I do with teaching and specifically for music technology.
まあこういうことっていうのは新しいものであって、だけどやっぱり今から勉強していく人が知る必要があるっていうことは確かだと思うんですね。なので今からちょっとこのエデュケーションとトレーニングということについて話したいと思います。
Yeah. One thing that I really love doing, and which maybe you can guess even from me being here, is I love being an artist, but then also showing people how that actually happens. Because I think for a lot of artists nowadays, there are a lot of artists out there doing electronic music, but not everybody shares about how they do it.
教えることっていうのはもちろん自分がアーティストですし、それを教えることはアートを教えることが中心なんですけれども、でも同時に、どうやってそのいろんなエレクトロニックなことが起こっているのかっていうのを教えることも重要だと思っています。なぜかというと、大体いろんなアーティストいますけれども、みんながどうやってそのテクノロジーを使ってやってるかっていうのを共有することって少ないと思うんですね。
Yeah, but oftentimes if a student or if a musician wants to learn music technology, and if they're able to find somebody that they can follow and can be their mentor, that's usually the key to being able to develop a lot of their creativity.
で、このミュージックテクノロジーを使っていくときに、例えば誰か一人指示するような人がいて、その人をそうして少しずつそういうところに入っていくっていうのがやっぱり一番いい方法ではないかと思っています。
Yeah, so kind of going back to what I mentioned just now about performance, which is my specialty at Berklee that I teach a lot of. I also teach production and other stuff, but for live performance, here are like some of the things that I teach my students, and I'll talk a little bit about this also.
もちろんミュージックプロダクションも教えるんですけれども、このエレクトロニックパフォーマンスについてここに書いてあることをクリップランチングとかいろんなもの。
Yeah, sorry.
が大体彼女が教えているようなことです。
Yeah, so all of these different things are just specific types of things that you could do in a performance. Like if you want to, if you've produced a song and you want to be able to share it, these are some things that you can try to do. So for example, like clip launching, like just now, right? Maybe it's starting to play a loop and then stopping the loop and then, starting to play it again and then stopping it.
クリップランチングって何かっていうと、ここに書いてあることっていうのは、自分が音楽を作って、それをこのライブで使うときに、必要なテクニックだったりするんですけれども、例えばクリップランチングっていうのは一つのループがあって、それを、スタートしたり、止めたり、スタートしたり、止めたりとか、そういうテクニックですね。
Yeah, and live synth playing and finger drumming are kind of similar. Live synths is if you're playing some kind of maybe keyboard live, but finger drumming is if you're playing the drums live.
このライブシンスプレイングとフィンガードラミング似てるものなんですけれども、ライブシンスプレイングっていうのはなんかキーボードとかを、実際に弾いたりとか、あとフィンガードラミングっていうのは同じように指を使うんですけれども、今度はドラムでやったりとか、そういうドラムの音でやったりとかそういうことね。
Yeah, live effect processing is also another one that is very popular. Sometimes if you hear DJs playing live sets, they'll add different kinds of sound effects, and that's an example of live effects processing.
ライブエフェクトプロセッシングっていうのは、DJ とかもいっぱいやってることですけれども、これはサウンドエフェクトについての、コントロールです。
Yeah, and live looping is a technique that it's a little bit more difficult, but a lot of people really enjoy doing it. It's when you play something and then you have it automatically repeat around. So you'll do some live synth playing or some live finger drumming or some live effect processing, but then everything repeats on its own so that you can add more layers and more layers.
You do that on the spot, is that right?
Yes, on the spot. That's right. Yeah.
That's what the difference between a clip
Yeah.
launching and live loop. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
一番最後のライブルーピングっていうのは、その場で、起こっていることを、もうそのステージ上でループしていくんですね。なので、上の、ライブシンセプレイナーとかフィンガードラミングとかあるけども、それをその場で、またループして、使っていくっていうようなテクニックです。
And if if people come to the Berklee clinic at Senzoku, we're going to do a live looping clinic with Ableton and me, so they'll learn some more. Yay!
今度、専属でやってくれるクリニックでは、この実際にライブルーピングっていうのを実際にデモンストレートしてくれるそうなので、もし興味ある方はぜひお越しください。
Yeah, cool. So that's a little bit overall about techniques, and I think in summary, because I want to leave some time for questions also. In summary, some of the things that I think a lot about for creative technology nowadays are these two things.
ここに、全体のまとめとして、この新しいテクノロジーっていうのは非常に、なんていうんですかね、新しい変化を自分のものに取り入れることですごくクリエイティブになれると思います。
Yeah, one of them is breadth and depth. And what I think about when I hear that is that it's so important to try different things because technology is like so big, right? But the more we try things, the more we're able to actually know what is out there for us to use.
一つのブレインデプスっていうのは、もう今テクノロジーがものすごい大きなことになってるわけで、それをどれだけいっぱいいろんなものを、トライするかっていうことだと思います。それをいっぱい知っていけば知っていくほど、深いところに到達できると思います。
Yeah, and the second thing I think about a lot is embracing change because music technology keeps changing so fast, right? There's like a new thing every day. It's so important for us, for me especially, to keep thinking about how am I going to learn what's new? How am I going to use it in my art and be an artist with that? So I think it's so important to be able to do that.
そして、もう一つ大切なことっていうのは、もうこのテクノロジーっていうのは毎日のように変わってるわけであって、そして一つのものにとどまるのではなくて、新しいものがどんどんできてくる中で、それを自分がどうやってもっと学んでいこうかっていうことだと思います。
Yeah, and I think that's actually the end of my presentation, and we're ready for questions. So yeah, thank you so much to everybody for coming. Thank you, Yuki, for translating. Really appreciate it. And yeah, if anyone has questions, can ask.
もし質問があればどうぞ。
While people are thinking about their question, I'll jump in and say thank you so much, Claire, for
guys.
sharing so much about your musical process and about the tools that you use in your music. So cool to see. So I want to mention that those events that Claire just mentioned, January 12th, we're going to have these clinics about careers in the music industry and then about live music production and performance. So I just put the link in the chat. You can check out the event there and register to join us at Senzoku in Tokyo on January 12th. So just next week. So if anybody has questions, we want to open it up. Feel free to come on camera or type your question in the chat. And if you also have any questions about the audition or admissions process for Berklee, myself or Lim would be happy to answer those as well. Cool. So Claire, you studied at Berklee, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Bree.
Great. And how was your experience getting started at Berklee? What was that like for you? Because
Yeah,
we have
that's a
some
great
people
question.
here. Yeah, sorry. We have people here who might be in that position right now, deciding to apply and seeing what that process is like.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Sorry for cutting you off. It's the weird Zoom thing that always happens all the time. But yeah,
right.
like when I was starting off, I kind of mentioned this just now too, but honestly, for me, Berklee was pretty scary because I didn't really know what exactly to major in, like what I wanted to do. And I only started doing electronic music pretty much towards the end of my
Right.
time at Berklee. But really, what made me interested in applying for Berklee and set it apart from other schools was its focus on being so forward-looking, right? So thinking about the future, thinking about contemporary music, and I was so happy that if I would go to Berklee, if I did get accepted to Berklee, I'd be able to do like everything, right? From like jazz to funk to even classical if I wanted to, pop electronic stuff. So it was that kind of um again, kind of going back to breadth, it was that kind of like wide range of offerings that really pulled me in. Yeah, it was tough for me too because Berklee was actually my second try at college. I went to university in Singapore. I'm originally from Singapore first, and I studied just general arts, but I didn't really like it. So I really wanted to do music, and Berklee was like a really good place for me to explore that, even if I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do.
You guys hear me okay? Hi,
Yeah, we can.
I'm Tim. I'm based in Tokyo actually. And I'm a non-traditional Berklee online student actually in the final program of a guitar performance BA degree. And I couldn't recommend more Berklee, either the brick and mortar Berklee or the online program. It's just been a cathartic experience for me as sort of a non-traditional student. I was originally from Nebraska and always wanted to do a music degree, never did back in the day. This provided the opportunity to go back and do that through the whole COVID experience. I just wanted to say, Claire, that your performance was outstanding. It's really, really enjoyable
Thanks so much, Tim. Thank you.
to listen to and to know that that people are taking electronic music to the next sort of level. I guess my question, more than just a question, but just would love to hear your informed comments on this. I have always for years watch the development of MIDI, development of sort of music taking on, technology. I mean, music has always used technology. The electric guitar back in the 50s was a really vulgar thing to some of the traditional, musicians, and it's always been evolving and pushing the limits. And I just love to see what is happening. I would love to hear your comments on you mentioned DJing and the use of controllers. Um, when I saw Robert Glasper play at Tokyo Blue Note several months ago, it was like an amazing experience for me. It's like, oh my God, it's finally there. The intersection between DJing, sampling with amazing jazz musicians right there live, and it's just an amazing thing. I just have such um high hopes and a positive outlook for the future. I would just love to hear your comments on that. No specific question, just to
Yeah,
say.
for sure. No, that's wonderful, Tim. I'm so glad to hear about your great experiences with Berklee too. That's really awesome. And I think you're totally right. It's not necessarily that it's final. It's weird because I keep saying just now when I was mentioning like Berklee's EDI program, I kept saying like, oh, it's kind of new. It's from like fall 2019. But like you said, people have been using tech in their performances and music making just forever. And I think that's kind of the beautiful part about it, which is that if a person is creative, they're just going to take whatever tool they have and they'll still learn to be creative with it, right? Like at some point, the violin was a piece of new technology, or like the flute was a new piece of technology. It's about what we do as artists and kind of like, take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and figure out what to do afterwards. And that's why I think like there's still so much to be explored. Like even though people could say like, oh, Berklee's at the forefront of pushing this and at an academic level, and I agree to a degree, but I think it's also way more than that, right? It's like about who is out there in the world also like pushing the envelope. How do we get our communities to look towards these people who are so forward thinking? Like immediately when you mentioned Robert Glasper, I was like, yes. And then I kind of also immediately thought back to like Herbie Hancock, right? And the first time that he had like that bass in Chameleon, it was like, whoa, for a lot of people. And I think it's these cool little moments spread across history that will really keep us, excited and keep us thinking about like, what are people going to do next? Like another really big moment, for example, that people were very excited about, and it was a smallish type of moment, but I think it made a lot of sense in a pop context. The artist Ariana Grande, she used this set of gloves that were like motion controlling gloves. They're called the Mimu gloves. I'll put this in the chat in case anyone is curious about them. The Mimu gloves, they were developed by another artist called Imogen Heap, who's really wonderful as well. But it basically lets you control music and motion just with your hands. And when she used that in her live performance, that was her fan base's first exposure to it, right? And they were like, "Whoa, this is so cool!" So even if she never really kind of explored that permanently as a part of her live set, I think it's those like small moments of artists just taking these things and running with the ball that really keep us going. So yeah, I'm very excited for the future too, Tim. So I think it's great.
That's great stuff. Can I ask one other follow-up question on
Sure.
on the gear that you use? I noticed you used
Yeah.
a push, the push for
Yeah.
Ableton. I've been using Ableton for years as well as
Nice.
my DAW, and I've got a push as well. I don't think I haven't really done as well as I could have done in sort of pushing its envelope of capability, but you had a couple of other devices there that seem to be pretty core to triggering your art. Would you have any comment on
Yeah,
recommendations or?
absolutely. Yeah, happy to share. Going back to maybe my setup. Well, there's a couple of like different setups that I've used over the years, but this is kind of like I half joke about this. If I often tell people like if you've ever seen any like EDI promo shot, like those are my hands on the thing. But this is like an older setup that I used to use. So it's push 2 back in the day, but also one of the most like all-time wonderful controllers ever, very versatile, the Akai MPK Mini. I don't have it with me at this exact moment, but I can type it into the chat as well. It's the MPK Mini, super trusty 25 key mini keyboard. Really great for a bunch of knobs if you want to, change some effects live. It's got a little joystick that's really neat as well. And in this particular setup, I was also using a slightly larger keyboard. That's in this particular instance, it was the Arturia Key Step 37. And that was just like a secondary 37 keyboard controller because there was a part of the performance where I was playing 2 sounds simultaneously. So I wanted to have that available to me. So this was the setup that I used to use. And then there's a mic stand over here. But then there's another iteration of the setup that we saw just now. I think in this video. Okay, yeah, cool. I'll just mute that so that we can fast forward. Okay, great.
Yes.
So push is here again. And this is actually the setup that I most often perform live with and also tour around with, which is push. It's kind of tilted forward as well. And that's usually because when I perform live, I'm standing up, and it's not just for for the audience to see, that's a big bonus, but it's actually a bit more ergonomic for like the arms so that we're not playing, like that if push is tilted in the opposite direction. So I usually tilt it downwards a little bit. This is a controller that is a little bit less common, but it's called the Q Neo. I'll also type it into the chat. It's made by Keith McMillan Instruments, which is a really wonderful company that does a lot of things with smart fabric. So it's sensitive to pressure, which I really love. And that was another big component of my setup, and I think it still continues to be as well. I was just using it for another show like a couple of weeks ago. So some parts are rotating, but generally those are I would say like the top couple of things that I use in my setup.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You're most welcome. Oh, I think okay. So Bree, I got a question in the chat. I think someone actually messaged this to me, but I'm happy to reread it out because I think it's about scholarships, and I'm not sure if I have that information. So someone had a question about scholarships. What do you think is and maybe Lim, this is also for you too. What do you think is the key to get a scholarship in admission? I'm considering attending and transferring to Berklee, but with the weak yen, it costs a lot of money to get into college. Yeah, so that's a concern I think that they had.
Excellent question. So one cool thing about Berklee is everyone who's decided to come audition and interview with us will automatically be considered for scholarships. There's no separate application process for scholarships. So the key thing that we look at is we have three things: your audition performance, your interview, and also your academic records. So we also look at a little bit on your supplementary materials if you have a portfolio that you would like to share, but mostly we look at your audition, your interview, and your transcripts. So take a look at, we have some videos and some articles on our website and our YouTube channel as well. So look at what the audition process is like, what kind of questions that we might ask in the interview process, and that's basically it.
Great. Thank you, Lim, and thank you everybody so far for your questions. We have time for maybe one more question if there were any, whether on camera or in the chat. So we'll leave a minute just for any last questions. But once again, we're really looking forward to making our visit to Japan in just a few weeks. So myself, Claire, our professor of trumpet, Tiger Akoshi, and Damien Bracken, the Dean of Admissions, we're going to be visiting Tokyo and Hamamatsu. So we're really excited to be presenting these clinics and having auditions. I'll share the link in the chat one more time for the January 12th clinic, so you can check out the information and register there. And yeah, I'll just open it up if there's any last questions before we close out our session today. All right, well, thank you again so much, Yuki, for your assistance on translating for this session. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Lim, for also being here as well. And thank you everybody who attended our session today. We have a lot of sessions like these online, so give us a follow on social media. We're Berklee Global on all of the different social media platforms. So we hope to see you either in person or at an online session again soon. So thank you everybody so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for a great session, everybody.
Thanks everyone. Thank you.
Bye.